Have you ever caught yourself thinking, what if I had chosen differently? Maybe you wonder what life would look like if you had pursued that dream career, stayed with a past partner, or moved to a different city years ago. These thoughts can feel like haunting daydreams, pulling you into scenarios that never actually happened but feel strangely real. And the more you imagine them, the more you begin to feel an unsettling mix of curiosity, regret, and longing. This is not just idle fantasy. It is what psychologists call the phenomenon of counterfactual thinking, the human brain's habit of constructing alternative versions of our life story. These imagined lives form what we could call unrealized identities, and they hold a powerful grip on how we see ourselves today. At first glance, you might think these thoughts are pointless, just daydreams about roads not taken. But in reality, your brain is not wasting time. It is running mental simulations, trying to answer a deep question. Who am I, and who could I have been? Our sense of identity is not static. It's a constantly evolving narrative we tell ourselves. And like any good storyteller, the brain doesn't just stick to one plot line. It writes sequels, spin-offs, and what-if scenarios. These imagined identities can feel so vivid that they shape how we evaluate our actual lives. If you've ever felt that nagging sense that your real life is somehow less than it could have been, you've experienced the weight of these alternative selves. But why do these parallel lives feel so compelling, sometimes even more alive than the one we're actually living? The answer lies in how the brain is wired for possibility. Neuroscientists have found that when we imagine an alternative life, our brain activates many of the same networks as when we recall real memories. To your mind, the difference between what was and what might have been is blurry. That's why these fantasies can feel almost tangible. They give us a sense of choice, of agency, of paths unexplored. And yet, because they are unrealized, they can also generate pain. Every alternative life is both a window into potential and a reminder of what we didn't or couldn't choose. Philosophers have long reflected on this tension. The Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard once wrote that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. This paradox captures why we get stuck in loops of regret and longing. Looking back, every missed opportunity seems clearer, yet we cannot rewind time. So the brain does the next best thing. It plays out endless variations trying to make sense of what our choices mean. The problem arises when these imagined selves stop being a tool for reflection and start becoming a trap, leading to dissatisfaction with the life we are actually living. Let's make this more relatable with an example. Imagine you trained to become an engineer but secretly always wanted to be an artist. Every time you see someone succeeding in art, you feel a pang, part admiration, part grief. Your brain begins building a vivid parallel timeline, the version of you who took that risk, who paints every day, who lives differently. That imagined self is not just a ghost, it becomes a mirror against which you measure your actual life. And if you're not careful, it can erode your self-esteem. The thought, I could have been that, quietly turns into, why am I not enough now? But here's the important insight. These unrealized identities are not enemies. They are messages. They reveal values, desires, and capacities that are alive in you, even if they are not expressed in your current path. Psychologists call this the possible selves theory. It suggests that humans carry not just one identity, but a whole constellation of potential identities, some past, some present, some future. These possible selves motivate us, guide us, and even protect us. For example, thinking about a possible ideal self can inspire you to grow, while thinking about a feared self can motivate you to avoid harmful choices. The problem is not that we have alternative selves. The problem is that we often misinterpret them as signs of failure instead of signs of direction. So how can you begin to work with your unrealized identities instead of being haunted by them? The first step is reframing. Instead of asking, why didn't I choose that path? Try asking, what does this alternative life reveal about what I value? If your unrealized identity as an artist keeps appearing, maybe it's not about regretting your career choice. Maybe it's about recognizing that creativity is a vital part of who you are, and it needs space in your current life. That doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow. It might mean carving out an hour a week to paint, write, or create. By doing this, you integrate parts of the alternative self into your real self, transforming regret into growth. Another powerful technique is the 2 chairs exercise. Imagine sitting across from your alternative self, the version of you who made the other choice. What would they say about their life? What joys have they experienced? What struggles? Then ask yourself, what can I learn from this dialogue? Often you'll find that the imagined life is not as perfect as your regret suggests. That realization brings balance. It reminds you that every path, real or imagined, carries its own mix of challenges. By humanizing your alternative self, you reduce its power to overshadow your real one. There is also a neuroscientific reason this matters. Studies show that our brains use counterfactual thinking, imagining what-if scenarios, not just to dwell on the past, but to prepare for the future. When you imagine an alternative self, your brain is rehearsing different strategies, testing different identities. It's like a mental sandbox where you can try out roles without committing to them. Instead of seeing these thoughts as wasted energy, you can treat them as data points, signals about your desires, your fears, and your potential. The key is to bring that information back into your present, instead of getting stuck in the simulation. Think about it like this. Your unrealized identities are like unopened letters. Each one contains a message about what matters to you. Ignoring them means losing valuable information, but reading them doesn't mean you have to abandon your current path. You can take the wisdom from those letters and incorporate it into the life you already have. This is what transforms alternative lives from sources of pain into sources of meaning. Let's pause here for a practical reflection. Think of one alternative life that haunts you the most. Maybe it's a career path, a relationship, or a place you didn't move to. Write down 3 qualities that life represents to you: freedom, creativity, love, stability, adventure. Then ask yourself, how can I bring those qualities into my current life in small, realistic ways? This simple exercise helps you reclaim the essence of the alternative identity without needing to rewrite your entire past. It shifts the focus from regret to integration. It's also important to acknowledge that some unrealized identities represent grief. The life with the partner you lost, the path you couldn't take because of circumstances beyond your control. These are not just what-ifs. They are wounds. And like all wounds, they deserve compassion. Allow yourself to mourn the life that never was, but also recognize that grief itself is a form of love. For the person you were, for the choices you couldn't make, for the possibilities that meant something to you. By honoring that grief, you make peace with the shadow of the unrealized self. The next layer is learning to use your imagined selves as a compass. Ask yourself, if my alternative life keeps showing up in my mind, what direction is it pointing me toward now? For example, if you constantly imagine a life where you are more independent, maybe your current challenge is to set healthier boundaries. If you imagine a life where you pursued a passion, maybe your current task is to give that passion a place alongside your responsibilities. By reframing these identities as guides instead of ghosts, you begin to transform them into allies. What's fascinating is that philosophy also supports this view. The existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre argued that humans are condemned to freedom, that we are always choosing, even when we try not to. Every choice creates not only one reality but countless unrealized ones. While this can feel overwhelming, it is also liberating. Because if every moment creates possibilities, then every moment also offers a chance to realign. You cannot go back and relive yesterday, but you can decide today to express more of what those alternative selves represent. That is where your true freedom lies, not in erasing regret, but in reclaiming possibility in the present. These insights help us see why alternative lives feel so emotionally heavy. They are not just fantasies. They are mirrors of our values, messages from our unconscious, and rehearsals for our future. And while they can cause pain when misinterpreted, they can also serve as powerful tools for self-understanding when embraced wisely. The question is not whether these unrealized identities exist. The question is how you choose to relate to them, as burdens or as teachers. Another practical tool for working with unrealized identities is to separate essence from form. Often, when you think about an alternative life, you imagine it as a complete package, a different job, a different partner, a different place to live. But beneath that form is an essence, the qualities that version of you represents. Maybe your imagined self who became a musician embodies freedom, creativity, and expression. Maybe the self who stayed in a past relationship embodies stability, intimacy, and comfort. By focusing on the essence instead of the exact form, you give yourself flexibility. You can bring those qualities into your current life in ways that are realistic and fulfilling, without needing to replicate the exact fantasy. This is how you turn the haunting weight of what could have been into a guide for what still can be. It also helps to recognize that the brain has a negativity bias. It pays more attention to loss than to gain. This means that when you imagine an alternative life, you tend to idealize it, seeing only the highlights, while your real life gets measured against a polished illusion. But every path has hidden costs. That artist you envy might also struggle financially. That relationship you left behind might have brought its own forms of pain. By reminding yourself of this, you balance the scales. The goal is not to dismiss the alternative identity, but to see it more realistically. This reduces its power to dominate your sense of worth. A useful metaphor here is the idea of a personal multiverse. Just like physicists imagine multiple universes existing side by side, your mind carries multiple selves, each representing a different branch of possibility. But unlike science fiction, you don't need to collapse into one timeline. You can learn from all of them. Your current self is not a failure compared to your unrealized selves. It is simply one version among many, and your task is to integrate what matters most from those alternatives into the life you are actually living. There's also a deeper philosophical insight. Identity is not a fixed essence but an ongoing process. Thinkers like Paul Ricoeur described identity as narrative. We are the stories we tell about ourselves. Unrealized identities are part of that story. They are chapters we didn't write but still imagine. And just like a storyteller can weave in themes and symbols from unwritten drafts, you can weave lessons from your imagined lives into your lived one. This perspective removes the burden of regret. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who missed out, you see yourself as an author with infinite raw material. Every unrealized life becomes a reservoir of meaning, not a mark of failure. Now let's translate this into action. Here's a 3-step reflection exercise you can try. Step 1. Write down one alternative life you often think about. Be specific. What choice created that life? Step 2. List the qualities that life represents to you. Is it adventure, love, freedom, security, or something else? Step 3. Brainstorm small, concrete ways to bring those qualities into your current life. If it's adventure, maybe it's taking a weekend trip somewhere new. If it's creativity, maybe it's signing up for a class or starting a personal project. The key is to recognize that the qualities of your alternative life are not locked away in the past. They are available to you now if you choose to engage with them. Another powerful mindset shift is to view unrealized identities as teachers of humility and compassion. When you imagine different versions of yourself, you realize how fragile and contingent life really is. How much depends on small choices, luck, and circumstances. This awareness can soften the harshness of self-judgment. You see that your current life is not the result of one perfect plan but of countless branching paths. That recognition can also make you more compassionate toward others, because you understand that everyone is carrying their own constellation of unrealized lives, their own hidden regrets and daydreams. This common humanity makes it easier to connect and to forgive. There's also a practical application for building resilience. When you find yourself obsessing over what could have been, try reframing the thought as a signpost. Instead of spiraling into regret, pause and ask, what does this reveal about what I still need to express? For example, if you keep imagining a life where you are more confident, treat that as a call to work on confidence now. If you keep picturing yourself in a career where you help people, look for ways to volunteer or mentor. In this way, the imagined self stops being a ghost and becomes a motivator. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that identity is plural, not singular. You are not one fixed self moving through time. You are many selves, evolving, branching, shifting. Some of those selves live only in imagination. Some live in memory. Some live in your daily choices. And all of them are part of your wholeness. By embracing this plurality, you reduce the pressure to have lived the perfect life. There is no perfect life. There are only lives, real and imagined, that together help you understand who you are. And here's the final piece. The only moment you can actually live is this one. The future is not guaranteed. The past cannot be rewritten. But right now, you have the power to draw from your unrealized identities and bring their wisdom into the present. Each day is an opportunity to integrate a piece of what those alternative lives represent. That is how you honor them, not by dwelling in regret, but by weaving their lessons into the fabric of today. So the next time you find yourself drifting into what-if thoughts, don't rush to shut them down. Listen to them. Ask what they're telling you about what matters. Then bring that insight into your current path, because your unrealized identities are not mistakes. They are signposts, teachers, and guides. And if you let them, they can enrich the life you are actually living, making it deeper, fuller, and more authentic. If this exploration of unrealized identities opens something for you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might also be haunted by their own what-ifs, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked. Here, we turn complex ideas in psychology, philosophy, and neuroscience into a practical toolkit for better thinking, helping you live not just with more clarity, but with more meaning in the life you already have.